Hello, hello. Let me check in with my final check in with From the Ashes by Thistle. My story of being homeless, Métis, and finding my way. Um, wow, this has been an amazing book. Um, uh, it's somebody who didn't actually realize what he was, like his history, where his people were. I mean, he sort of knew he was native, but he didn't really have any clue about that until like in his mid 30s, coming out of all of the addiction and crime, which I mean, the crime basically just is to feed his addiction. Um, Stays in prison, um, assaults, him robbing, him dealing, um, him, basically wasting away into a skeleton, almost losing his leg, um, you know, still kind of at this point, still kind of hobbling or around, but somebody who found his way, who was able to finally to kind of to make it stick, of getting out of the kind of endless cycle of addiction, um, and to really make something of himself, to go back to school, to end up graduating, being what sounds like basically one of the top experts in Métis history and in homelessness in Canada. I don't know Métis history in homelessness in Canada. I'll have to look up his particular credentials, but someone who is, you know, is is someone. And I mean, he was someone before. He was just rapidly, he was just completely drug addicted, consumed, and all that. Um, and there's a really powerful scene at the end here of him discovering who he is, discovering who his people were, that he comes um, from a line of the Métis rebels, the ones who fought against Canada, um, take you know taking over the Métis homeland, and sort of the reverberations of that throughout, down through the generations of his families. Um, yeah, yeah, a really touching, a really powerful thing. I mean, I guess if you can only say one thing, is that, because we're going from his point of view, we start in the dark and we only come out into kind of the light of like what his history is with him, like at the end of the book. But I mean, that's kind of fair with this kind of a memoir, of a of him telling about coming out of this, and describing exactly how lost and vulnerable and fucked up um, he was, and kind of when he gets like, I've always been, he says, like, I was always interested in history. It's like, um, that coming in as, um, you know coming in as a motivation to actually learn the history of his family, of his people, of becoming a graduate student and going back to the Métis homeland, and actually talking to people who wouldn't talk with anyone else, because they're rightfully very suspicious of the Canadian government and of you know settler culture, set set that has overlaid their own culture. Um, so kind of a discovery of that, um, really powerful. But I mean, just kind of the stark reality of being a drug addict, of being native in Canada, um, and just sort of the life. this 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 whole kind of really brutal, angry, hard life that he's had, and the people that he's with, who, all these people, um, you know, addicts themselves, messed up themselves, just a whole kind of a culture underneath, the happy kind of white middle class thing, that which is all I know of Canada. It's just like I know vaguely something of that, just having vaguely, briefly, having worked in a homeless shelter for like a very small amount of time, just as a student. So not really fucking any clue whatsoever, but just that, and probably the most vanilla, easy kind of that. Um, yeah, yeah, it was a really good book, really valuable, actually, to go from Jody Wilson Raybould's book to this book, of like kind of just like um, what kind of an amazing spectrum, what kind of amazing gift to get. Um, yeah, yeah. So I'm really happy I listened to that. That was really good. And at the end he talked about how, I was spent a lot of these years really fucked up on drugs and alcohol. So my memory, I should be considered an unreliable narrator. I've gone back and I've kind of gotten various different people's accounts of stuff and records and stuff like that to try and piece things together. But that's why in some ways this is a fragmentary thing. There's also some very interesting kind of, yes, almost kind of visions of the past, and of fighting, like, having watched some kind of History Channel stuff, and suddenly kind of going back in history and fighting with people who looked like him, and it's like against, redcoats, and it's like this was the Métis, this was the Battle of Batoche, kind of that idea, which, given Louis Riel and his visions, is a fairly kind of resonant thing. You can see why this is in the book as well. That kind of like, we're not going to be. This is his truth and his visions and his heart, his soul. Beautiful book. All right, I will leave it there. More videos later.